it used to be that young men were considered adults at 13 years of age. That was when a majority of cultures, I'm going back, 1,000 years, a majority of cultures viewed 13 years of age as an entry into manhood. There was usually some sort of an initiation. Some of them were awful, arduous things. Some of them were actually very beautiful things. But there was a ceremonial progression into manhood. And from that point on, young men, 13-year-olds, were expected to behave themselves as men. They were no longer a child. You no longer do childish things. You're a man now. You need to learn how to be a man. You need to learn skills. You need to be useful. You need to protect others rather than harming them, etc. And we've taken all of that expectation off. Now we call them teenagers, and we allow them to remain children until they're into their 20s. Go to a university sometime and have a look at how many 25-year-old children are running around. And for that matter, the lecturers, 35 and 50-year-old children there are inside those walls. What we've done is we've essentially said you can remain a child for as long as you really feel like, and you don't have to grow up. And that's become an incredibly toxic element of this as well.
Well, I think you see that a lot playing out in culture with, the rise of Labubu's and stuff, and not to belittle the conversation, but there is this real culture shift. I'm doing some research on this. I'm doing a video about it, hopefully this week, talking about how this current sentiment and the shift in culture has enabled people to stay, to become Peter Pan, essentially.
Yep.
And because we've told them that the climate's going to collapse, that they'll never be able to afford a home, that the system's stacked against them, that they're oppressed, what's happened is a lot of these children have manifested into perpetual children, even in their adult life. And therefore, they go and spend their money as if they're a child. Like this is a consumer issue. So when people are looking at like the Labubus and seeing how the hell we got people lining up at all hours of the morning to try and get these Labubus, this is why. This is a culture problem. Like, it's funny, when I make these videos, I always get people going, oh, who cares? This is all stupid. I'm like, you're missing the context here is this is a bigger problem than you realize. You're looking at the Labubu story and going, oh, that's stupid, and dismissing it. That is actually a precedent for where the culture's flowing to.
Right. Yeah, it's a symptom of a bigger problem, but it's more than just what people do with their money. If you tell people you have no future, one of the defining characteristics of adulthood is the ability to defer pleasure, to be able to work towards something, save towards something, put in the effort now, and endure some uncomfortable, some pain, some long hours, whatever it may be in your case, in order to achieve an objective that you recognize as being worthwhile in the future. That's what you talked about with saving for that ski trip. And what we're doing when we tell people you have no future is we're taking away that psychological element of preferring the future. And that is adulthood, the ability to actually go, no, I'm going to defer my pleasure and I'm going to invest into that future. Well, if I have no future anyway, I might as well just live for the now, which is permanent, childhood.
Topher, you got a question here. Massive super chat from Kyle. Thank you so much, Kyle. For Topher, when you say abolish all welfare, do you include veterans who are now unable to work because of their time in service? There are definitely people out there taking the piss, especially many on NDIS, but veterans, where do you stand on them? Good question.
So my position, it's a great question. Thank you, Kyle. And I don't know if that's your personal circumstance, but I do know people in that circumstance. And if that's yours, then that's a regrettable thing. And thank you for your service. My position is very, very simple. The government is the worst possible entity to put the lives and fortunes and futures of disabled people, poor people, people who've been unlucky in life or in circumstances. The government is the worst possible entity. And if you need proof of that, look at Centrelink. I would not condemn my enemy to have to endure dealing with Centrelink. Charity is by far the best way to look after people. And so when I say abolish welfare, I don't mean leave everyone in the lurch. I don't mean leave everyone with nothing. If you can't fend for yourself, then you get nothing. No. Charity is an incredibly important thing. And the reason why charity has shrunk, people say, oh, well, charity wouldn't be able to cover all of that. Well, it can't anymore, because we've allowed government to step in and displace private charity through welfare. So what we would need to see is a gradual reduction in welfare, allowing the charity sector to actually step up and to take its place. What I expect from every adult is for every adult to do what you can, right? And for some people, that's not going to be enough to cover their cost of living. There are people who genuinely can't do anything. They need to be looked after all of the time. And I do not want to see those people starve or go hungry or go homeless or any of that. But I do not for a moment believe that the government is the best entity for looking after people in that situation. And especially if we fast forward from where we are now, if you think it's hard being a disabled veteran in a country that still has money, wait till you see how hard it is when the countries run out of money. And by making all of these people dependent on the government, unfortunately, we've set these people up. These are the people who will get hurt or are being hurt the most by things like our medical system running out of money, things like our police and the court system being completely dysfunctional. The poor are always the ones who are hurt the most. And I wouldn't want to put them, because I care about people like that, I don't want them to be at the mercy of the government.
I think like a fairly, I've brought this example up before, but a pretty good picture of that is look what happens around the bushfires. By the time the government's got themselves into gear, the local communities have already worked together to raise money to get water there, to get food there, to get shelter there. I always defend people. I think most people are inherently good. And I think it's very hard. Obviously, there's exceptions, but I think it's very hard to walk past someone who's truly suffering and turn a blind eye. Not to say that people don't do it, but I think that the government ruins everything it touches because all it does is overcomplicate it, overregulate it, and employ a whole bunch of people who just basically sit there and point fingers and never actually get anything done. When you put it down to people who are are personally attached to the story, or say for example, you talk about a charity, Topher. Let's say there is a charity that's set up to service our veterans and it's run by veterans. And you see a lot of this in the US, like Black Rifle Co. is a really good example. It's a coffee company that does a considerable amount for veterans because their government does fuck all. We could see things like that.
On the Black Rifle Company specifically, but there's quite a few companies like that. They go out of their way to employ disabled veterans. And so they've set up their workplace so that people who have lost their legs to an IED or have very PTSD and psychological trauma, etc., they work with those people to say, okay, there's a lot that you can't do. What can you do? How do we work with you to give you the dignity of actually being able to contribute and being able to pay your own way and earn your own way in life? And again, if someone's genuinely past the point where that's possible for them at all, then they should still be looked after. But I believe as a society, we need to get better at making room for people that need some allowance in order for them to be a productive member of society. And this is where welfare gets really insidious. There's a thing called the welfare trap, where once someone's sort of in that system and they've found all the different, there's the rent assistance and there's this and there's that, and they get extras on their medical costs, etc. If they start to earn any money, those perks get stripped away from them very, very quickly. So what we've created is essentially a ceiling over the top of these people where we've said, we'll look after you, but we'll only look after you for as long as you stay helpless. The moment you start to actually step up and do what you can do, we're going to punish you so harshly. John Humphreys is an economist that I interview regularly. I actually interviewed him today. I've got another interview with him coming out in 2 days. He's done a lot of research on this, on the welfare trap. And for people who are deep into the welfare system, who then get a job and start working, the rate at which they lose their welfare perks translates into effectively being taxed at 80 cents on the dollar. So they go and get that minimum wage job to get back into the workplace and to start working, etc. For every dollar they earn, they're losing 80 cents in benefits, which means we're asking them to go out there and work for 1/5 of minimum wage. And most of them go, well, screw this for a joke. I'm going to stay on welfare. And I can understand that decision from a human perspective. I can understand people just giving up and going, okay, I'm here now and I'm just going to stay here. I'm not going to try and work my way out. So the incentives, once the government gets involved, it destroys everything it touches. And if your welfare and your own survival is now dependent on the government, I'm sorry, but the government sooner or later, piece by piece, is going to destroy you too. It's just what the government does.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this clip from The Oddcast. You can find our full episodes over on YouTube at The Oddcast HQ. We'll see you over there. Make sure you like, subscribe, and get in the comments.